Hello, welcome to my Halloween themed October reading wrap up. Halloween is not much of a thing at all in Australia, sadly. A lot of people go as far as to hate Halloween because they see it as the Americanization of our culture. It's coming into fashion a bit more at the moment. That's mainly due to supermarkets stocking Halloween themed products just to sell more stuff, really. Our lovely pumpkin and skull lights behind me we actually got from Coles, our local supermarket. So I thought my way of getting into the Halloween spirit would be to have a Halloween themed reading month. I picked out 5 books known for being creepy and mysterious, some books I've been meaning to read for a while, and some authors that I've been meaning to get into. The first book I read in October is We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. This has been on my TBR for ages and ages, so I'm really glad that my spooky themed reading month made me finally pick it up. This book tells the story of 2 sisters, Mary Cat and Constance. They live in a big house on the outskirts of the village, and the villagers all make fun of them and are also kind of scared of them because the sisters' family, all except their uncle Gillian, all died at dinner one night, poisoned, and Constance was at first blamed for their deaths. This is told from the point of view of Mary Cat, and she comes across as this incredibly childish and naive person, but we find out that she's actually 18, and so these girls have been kind of locked away in this house by themselves for a very long time. The atmosphere of this book is perfectly suited for Halloween. It's really creepy, it's very atmospheric. The sisters are really into nature and learning about poisonous plants and mushrooms, and you definitely get that very witchy vibe from the book. The book is kind of a twist on a haunted house story in that it kind of tells the story of how a house might become haunted. Throughout the book there is a mystery of who actually did kill the family, and it's pretty obvious to guess who did it, but I didn't think that distracted from the book at all. I really liked Shirley Jackson's writing style, so I'll be really curious to pick up some of her other books. I then read Coraline by Neil Gaiman. I adore the film of Coraline. It's one of those films that seems to be always on TV, and every time it is, I always have to sit down and watch it. And I think almost everyone who reviews this book says that this book is very similar to the film in a lot of ways, but also quite different and is still good in its own way. I couldn't help but imagine the film in my head when I was reading the book, but I think that was partly because the illustrations, like that one there of the other mother, are really similar to the design of the film. So Coraline is the story of a girl called Coraline. She lives in an apartment building that is made up out of an old house that used to be one big house. She's really bored, her parents aren't paying any attention to her, so she goes through this door in their living room, which was supposedly blocked up because it's a door that wasn't in use since the apartments were built, but she discovers it's actually a doorway to another world where her other mother and her other father live. I think I would have really enjoyed this book as a kid. As an adult, you could kind of see through the writing a little bit in that the things that Neil Gaiman was sort of forewarning and implying, it was really obvious to see what he was actually saying with those, whereas as a kid you would be more invested in the mystery. I really love the character of Coraline. I feel like she's very realistic in terms of being a little girl, but you can still believe that she would be able to pull off this sort of fantastical and pretty scary adventure that she goes on. I feel like the film is kind of an expanded version of this book. Pretty much all the changes in the film make sense when you imagine the scriptwriters reading this book and sitting down and trying to work out how they were going to make it into a feature film. So in a way I think I prefer the film just because it's a little bit more grown up and there's a little bit more depth to it. But I think for kids this book would be a really great Halloween read. Next I read Carrie by Stephen King. This is my first Stephen King novel, and I picked this one because it's one of the shortest, and also I've seen the musical of Carrie at my sister's university, and so I kind of knew the storyline. For anyone who doesn't know, Carrie is about a girl called Carrie who has an extremely religious mother. So she's bullied a lot at school, but she discovers while being bullied in the girls' bathrooms after she's just had her first period that she has the power of telekinesis. The fact that this is Stephen King's first novel and it's so brilliant is really annoying to me as someone who's trying to write novels. I kept forgetting that Stephen King has never been a teenage girl having their first period because he captures the mind of a teenage girl so perfectly. I really like the way the book shifts between sort of normal story narrative and news articles and excerpts of books written after the fact of the major climatic event that happens in the book, because you get to see what people thought had happened and sort of see people's misconceptions and prejudices at work, but then you get to see what actually happened as well. I thought all the characters were really well drawn. They were really individual, interesting characters, although the teenage characters were kind of based off stereotypes as sort of teenage characters in America tend to do. You know, you've got the jock character and the nerd character and all that, but he still made them really individual and made them their own people. Yeah, I really enjoyed Stephen King's writing, and I'll have to work out which one of his books I want to try reading next. Fourth book I read in October is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I was not sure if I was going to enjoy this. For some reason, my perception of Daphne du Maurier books is that they're kind of melodramatic and over the top. And this certainly was melodramatic, but in a really great way. So this book is about an unnamed main character. She narrates this in first person and she never mentions her name. The main character is an orphan. She's not very wealthy or highly educated, so she's working for an American lady as her sort of personal assistant, companion type person, and they're currently staying in Monte Carlo. And in the same hotel is a man called Maxim de Winter. He recently lost his wife Rebecca in a sailing accident, and he and the main character start hanging out and he eventually asks her to marry her. And so the main character sort of has this choice between either marrying him, this wealthy guy with a really great house, or sticking with the American lady who's really annoying. So of course she chooses marrying the rich guy. The book then moves to the house Manderley. The main character soon realizes that the first wife Rebecca is still haunting the house and that there's definitely a mystery behind her death. I really related to the main character. Even though I personally wouldn't go and marry some rich old man, I can kind of see why she did it. And I think I really related to her sort of social anxiety and her shyness and her worry that she wasn't doing the right thing in the house. So she'd worried that the servants were looking down on her because she didn't know the ways of rich people and how to manage a household. And then she's also really imaginative, so she was always imagining what other people might be saying. I feel like half of this book is examining class at the time, and the book was written in the 1930s. At first I was kind of thinking that a lot of the characters were a little bit stereotypical, so the evil characters were all very ugly and the main characters were all very pretty. But then I remember that this is a first person narration, so obviously we're only getting the main character's perspective, and remembering that it probably is an unreliable narrator is really interesting in regards to all the events that happen in the book, and you kind of wonder what really is the truth. The book is definitely very similar to Jane Eyre. You've got this young, innocent, sort of lower class person marrying the rich upper class man, with the first wife haunting the giant mansion. And I kind of really liked the fact that this is an updated, I guess, 20th century version of Jane Eyre. My only qualm is it probably was a bit too long. It's a really thick, hefty book, and it was a little bit repetitive, but that is the way of all books generally, and I'm curious to see what some other Daphne du Maurier's books are like. The final book I read, which I actually just finished minutes ago, is Dark Places by Gillian Flynn. I actually got this for Christmas last year, and I finally got around to reading it, mainly because I'd heard that Gillian Flynn's only good book is Gone Girl, and that the others are not quite as good. This isn't as good as Gone Girl in that I absolutely raced through Gone Girl, and this I found engaging but not that unputdownable level of interest. The book is about a girl called Libby. When she was 7 years old, her family were brutally murdered in their home, and her oldest brother Ben was blamed for the murders. She believes that this is the truth until she is contacted by a group of murder enthusiasts who don't believe that Ben committed the murder and have their own theories as to who actually did it. So she sets out to actually find out the truth and go interview all the people who were connected to the murders at the time. The book switches between Libby and the present day, and either her mum Patty or her brother Ben's point of view on the day of the murders. So I think the most clever thing about this book is the way Gillian Flynn has been able to reveal information both by Libby interviewing people in the present day and revealing what actually happened via these other point of views. You actually do get to know when people are lying, and little bits of information about the characters and about what happened get revealed over the course of the whole novel. I thought it was a readable, engaging story. It did get a little bit melodramatic in the end, and it did feel a little bit neatly wrapped up. Still, I think it was a really good Halloween read. So those were all of the Halloween themed books that I read this month, and I think I had a really good selection from spooky and creepy to murders and thrillers. I really enjoyed having a reading theme. It made me really motivated to read the books that I'd chosen. It's made me wonder if I should try doing a themed reading month each month next year, but I'm not sure what those themes would be, so I'll have to think about that one. Let me know if you have any other good suggestions for Halloween reads that I can put on my list for next year. I hope you have a good Halloween if you're celebrating it, and if not, just a good week in general, and I will see you next time. Bye!